was surprised as anyone to be able to put up those kind of numbers. I knew that, you don't just throw up 2,600 yards in a season. You start looking at each game by game, what we did, 200 yards and 300 yards rushing and things like that. And in a lot of those games, I didn't play the fourth quarter.
Intercepted by Charles Woodson. Thomas off the Heisman.
They will not catch Lamar Jackson.
35-40. He's on his way. Desmond Howard is going all the way. That is a Heisman Trophy winner.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Hello Heisman from the Varsity Podcast Network, where we talk all things college football and, of course, the Heisman race, which is no longer a race. But let's start with the little music selection. So this last week I had Saturday Night Fever, the Bee Gees, great soundtrack. I went with another soundtrack this week. Got a little Kenny Rogers, The Gambler.
Love that.
Yes, sir.
Love that. You're a country guy?
I can appreciate some good country songs. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I like all music, So I'm not going to lean back and try and point the album out because last time I did that, I almost fell off the chair. But I was going through the albums.
Okay.
And I came up, this is one of my all-time favorites. I don't know if you get this. And by the way, if you're out there listening and it sounds a little strange, it's because we can only play the music if we're talking about it. Otherwise, we get into trouble, and we don't want to get into any trouble.
That's right.
So this is one of the first albums I owned. It's Sly and the Family Stone. And this is Everyday People, or this is Sing a Simple Song. I love this. There isn't a bad song on this album.
Yeah, that's right. That's the crazy thing is, J-Ro, as I was going through my albums, I almost picked Sly and the Family Stone too. So we were on the same page. We were vibing together, brother.
I love that.
Yeah, when it came to music this morning. Yes, sir.
All right, so let's turn this down. Let's talk some college football now. All right.
Yes, sir. Yes,
so we're knee deep in bowl season. The playoffs, as we record this, are a week away, but there's plenty of college football news to talk about. And for me, it's become kind of like a game show. It's kind of like, spin the wheel, it's time to play Portal Pandemonium. Desmond, who's playing this week? And actually, for me, there's some great irony in some of the choices this week. Bo Nix leaves Auburn, where he started for 3 years, and he goes to Oregon. Of course, the great irony there is that when he was a freshman, the first splash that he made on the college football national scene was when Auburn, he had a big game against Oregon when Oregon was number 11. Now he's going there. He's following the guy who was his offensive coordinator and position coach back then, Kenny Dillingham, who's at Oregon.
What's also kind of crazy about this is I read an article about a week ago where Ole Miss's coach Lane Kiffin came out and he really criticized the transfer portal and NIL. And I just read an article the other day that Bo Nix said that he was in talks, that he had texted with Lane Kiffin, who's about to lose his quarterback, Matt Corral, and he was in talks with Bo Nix about transferring to Ole Miss. So it's really crazy. It's hard to keep up with the quarterbacks because those are the ones who are really starting to make the headlines because there's so many different quarterbacks, not only going to the transfer portal, but landing in different places already. So it's wild. It's like the wild west right now when it comes to the transfer portal. And J-Ro, I think that the NCAA, they have a lot to do with this. They're at fault because this is something, if you've paid attention to college football for the past, 10, 12 years, in my opinion, this is something that you saw coming if you really paid attention. And they had an opportunity to maybe regulate this, legislate this, try to have some sort of restrictions that it wouldn't be so loosey-goosey the way it is now. But they never did. Even though they saw the train come, they never did anything about it. And now that it's here, it seems like it's a free-for-all. And I would agree with Lane Kiffin on the fact that he said there's free agency now in college football? There absolutely is free agency now in college football.
Yeah, I think, and we've talked about this before, if you go back to the way it used to be, where players had to sit out a year if they wanted to transfer, even if the coach left, well, that wasn't fair. I mean, what kind of sense did that make? But, the pendulum has swung, and I mean, we're just seeing wild movement. I mean, the other one that got my attention, obviously the big name, was Adrian Martinez. He was a starter at Nebraska for 4 years, and he leaves there, and now he goes to Kansas State. Kansas State losing their quarterback, Skylar Thompson. Kansas State was, I guess, 7-5 last year. We've now gotten to the point where maybe the shock value has worn off a little bit, and we're starting to kind of evaluate these moves. So, well, that's kind of interesting. Is that a good move for Adrian Martinez to go to Kansas State?
Wow.
I mean,
yeah, I tell you what, when you look at the thing about Kansas State that I respect is that when you watch them play, normally their team is very disciplined. They don't beat themselves. They're very fundamentally sound. And when you look at Adrian Martinez and his career in Nebraska, like freshman year, he was like outstanding. And then after that, he's dealt with injuries. He's been very, very, very turnover prone. And you maybe being at Kansas State with this coaching staff, they can help him protect the ball better, make better decisions with the ball, because Nebraska, especially last year, if not the past 2 years, but definitely this past season, they would invent ways to lose games. Like they would be in games, like we're talking fourth quarter, 1-score game, and then something crazy, something zany would happen, normally on the offensive side of the ball, and they would end up losing the game. And Adrian Martinez had a lot to do with that because of the decisions he was making, or he would not only would he throw interceptions, sometimes he would just fumble the ball, just very careless with the ball in crucial times. Maybe, just maybe, this move to Kansas State with this coaching staff and just how disciplined and fundamentally sound they are, maybe it'll be a good move for him and for his career.
A lot of close losses for Nebraska last year.
Yep.
You know who I'm thinking about this week? I can't get this guy off my mind, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. It's Gary Stokan, okay? You may be wondering, well, who is that, if I pronounced it correctly? He's the CEO of the Peach Bowl. He's been there for a long, long time. Now, why am I thinking about him? Because the Peach Bowl is Michigan State and Pittsburgh. Well, that's a good matchup. That's the good news. Here's the bad news. Kenneth Walker III and Kenny Pickett have both said, no thanks, I'm not going to play, I'm going to sit out. Are you okay with guys not playing in bowl games?
You know what, J. Rowe, it used to really, really, really bother me. It really did, because I'm an old school guy, right? I think that, you have a mission. And when I played, you looked forward to going to a bowl game. Like that was one of the goals. That was a big goal, especially being from the Big Ten. We wanted to go to the Rose Bowl. The Rose Bowl was the the granddaddy of them all. If you couldn't go to the granddaddy of them all, then you would go to a Gator Bowl, but it was still looked at as a prize, like something that you earned for having a successful season, for doing whatever you did, for having the record that you had when the season was over. So it's like, okay, this is it. Then you look forward to the gifts. We would get a sweatsuit. We would get, you would get a nice hat. Maybe a bag, and if you won the game, you get like a ring. So with that being said, that's not the mindset of the student athletes, at least a lot of the football players. Now, the game isn't really viewed as a prize for having a great season like it used to be. It's now viewed as something that's maybe a glorified exhibition game that doesn't have a lot of meaning for these young football players. And because they view it that way, and now they understand the business of it. I mean, back in the day, the numbers weren't the way they are now. But now that you see that these coaches are making all of this money, that these bowl games are making all of this money, The student athletes, these football players are like, wait. Okay, well, if I'm now in a position because of what I've done, whether it's the last 2 years, whether it's just this season, but I put myself in the position to become a high draft pick and to potentially make millions and millions of dollars, to take my family out of the current, socioeconomic status that they're in and put them in a better place financially, then why am I going to go out here and take that risk? And, I don't think it's an easy decision for a lot of these players because, these are the guys you used to go to battle with every Saturday. Of course, you want to, finish the mission, but family over everything when it comes to these decisions. So I kind of understand it. But like you said, I talked about this on game. I talked about this bowl game. Like, we got a lot of firepower. You got a Heisman finalist and Kenny Pickett Kenny Pickett, and then you got the Doak Walker Award winner and Kenneth Walker III, and then you got the Biletnikoff winner and Jordan Addison. Yep. Well, 2 of the 3 won't be there, and we don't know who the hell is going to throw the ball to Jordan now. So it loses a lot of firepower because these guys are making these decisions. But with the mentality of the football players at this day and age, I guess I get it.
Well, listen, you know what the rallying cry for these guys is, and the justification? It's remember Jalen Smith, because in 2015, when he was the best linebacker in the country for Notre Dame and played in the Fiesta Bowl against Ohio State, tore up his knee, was supposed to be a top 5 pick, ended up going to the Dallas Cowboys in the 2nd round. Now he's bounced around the league a little bit, but that had a devastating impact on his career. And I would imagine that, there's a whole bunch of really elite college players where if they don't have his poster up on the wall, maybe their agents do.
No, you're 100% right. And that's why it would make sense when you look at, Kenny Pickett, and, he was a Heisman finalist. He's projected to be one of the top quarterbacks off the board, 1st round selection. And then you look at Kenneth Walker III, the Doak Walker Award winner. He was 2nd in the nation in rushing yards per game. And, he's another guy who's probably going to be one of the first running backs off the board. So these guys are making decisions to protect their future. And how can you knock anyone who's making a decision to protect their future? And when you go to these schools, that's what you go for. Kenny Pickett went to Pitt so he can be the starting quarterback at Pitt to get into the NFL. Kenneth Walker III transferred from Wake to Michigan State so he could have an opportunity to showcase his skills so he can show everybody what he can do. Why? So he can become a high draft pick in NFL. And these guys have accomplished that goal. They have nothing else to prove at this level, at the collegiate level. So it kind of makes it makes a lot of financial sense when you look at it that way.
Yeah. I'm laughing just a moment ago listening to you talk about how, if you go to a bowl game, you get a nice sweatsuit or maybe you get a ring or a bag or something like that, because now it is a totally different world that college football players are living in. And the news that kind of caught my eye, this actually happened a couple of weeks ago, was the name, image, and likeness deal that's brewing down at the University of Texas, where the offensive linemen now each stand to make $50,000 from a nonprofit for making appearances for them. And that, I know this is going to sound crazy, that's chump change compared to some of the money that these guys are making. It's become, talk about the Wild West, it's crazy out there. You remember when you were in college, did you have to kind of scrape in and look underneath the cushions on the couch to find some quarters to buy pizza?
Absolutely, man. I look at some of these things that are going on, and even things that happened back in the past. Like, man, I was cheated. Are you kidding me?
You did all right.
Yeah, I was cheated back there. But listen, I was the guy who was like trying to, borrow like one of my teammates' pizza cards so I could take my girlfriend out for pizza after a game or something like that. So, where these guys are nowadays is so far and beyond anything I ever imagined. But, 50 G's, I'm hearing about guys, especially it's normally that's offensive linemen. Now I'm hearing quarterbacks, so they're getting like these $1 million deals. And
Bryce
like
Young.
J-Ro, remember when the $1 million was like a lot of money?
Yeah, yesterday, as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned, this morning.
Right, exactly. And I was like, they just handing out $1 million to these kids for these NIL deals. It's bananas. It's the wild, wild west. But like I said, um, I guess I have to fault the NCAA, and they had an opportunity to I guess take control of this, to legislate this, to make some type of rules and regulations to try to control this, to put some guidelines, but there are no guidelines. People are learning on the fly. They're doing it as they see fit, and that's why we are where we are right now, because they never grabbed the bull by the horns and said, this is how we're going to do this. You guys are justified getting something for your name, image, and likeness. I mean, it only makes perfect sense. And I've been on this tirade since Reggie Bush was at USC. Like, I thought USC owed him money. And so now they're like, okay, you guys do deserve this, but now we don't have any guidelines to try to support it or try to control it. So it is what it is. And, we see guys doing national commercials who had terrible seasons, but hey, if they can get the money, why not?
Yeah, my mind kind of wanders back a generation, and I think about the Pony Express at SMU, Eric Dickerson and Craig James, and the big joke about them, and it was, kind of like the outlaw society back then. But the big joke about them was, the question was, what's the biggest difference between playing for SMU and then going to play in the NFL? And of course the answer was, you go to the NFL, you have to take a pay cut. And that was, that was supposed to be kind of some kind of outrageous joke.
Right.
But, for me, one of the things that I've been thinking about lately is, where could the abuses come from? Because look where you went to school and how passionate that fan base is. What are, the possibilities, the potential for abuse? Is there? What are we going to see bidding wars? Can you imagine if this was all legal when Billy Joe Dupree ended up at Oklahoma? I mean, or just pick your great player, your stud player. And I'm not making any accusations about this person, but think about the potential in terms of what Oregon has at their disposal with a guy like Phil Knight, who's already started to talk about, how he can be of service to the University of Oregon. I mean, anybody who's been to that campus and seen their football facility, I mean, it's jaw-dropping. That's Phil Knight money. I mean, and there are Phil Knights all over the country looking to support their alma mater. So you just wonder what might happen.
No, you're right about that. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because actually I spoke to a couple of NFL owners, and they're not on board with where this is going. Like, they think that this is going in the wrong direction, and that it's bad for college football as a whole. So it's funny you mentioned that, because I think that, I think they're right. When you look at this thing, especially financially, and how it's just the wild, wild west, there's not just the kids. Obviously, the football players are the ones that people are focusing on, because now there's a shift in power. And that's why you see certain coaches making certain statements and certain comments, because there's a shift in power. There's more autonomy with these football players. They used to be, no flexibility. Now they have the flexibility to make these, unilateral decisions that are affecting these coaches. And that's going to, undermine a lot of these coaches and what they're doing as far as the recruiting trail is concerned. But look at the college coaches' salaries now too, and look at the buyouts. All of this, to me, is eroding the foundation of college football and what it was supposed to be. And I spoke, like I said, talked to a couple of NFL owners about this, and they're very, very concerned with where this is headed. So it's bigger than, just the NIL deals with the football players. Look at the coaches' salaries and how coaches are starting to jump ship now. And we talked about that a couple of episodes ago. You looked at Brian Kelly with his team, Notre Dame, still had an outside chance of going to the college football playoff, but that didn't make him stay in South Bend. No, he jumped ship and went to Baton Rouge and got a bigger bag. So there's just a lot to unpack when it comes to this issue with not only NIL, but coaches' salaries and just the money that's being thrown at everybody, because you have these boosters, these billionaire boosters who are really throwing the money at these coaches, and then probably at these student athletes, to these football players, is not coming from the athletic department, J-Ro. And I think that's the biggest issue.
Well, you talk about the NFL and the kind of junction with college football. Coming up next here on Hello Heisman, we have got someone who distinguished himself in both places in the most extraordinary way. The 1988 Heisman Trophy winner from Oklahoma State, one of the most scintillating players to watch, not only in college football, but in the NFL. Of course, none other than number 20, Barry Sanders. Coming up next here on Hello Heisman.
Gundy, a long signal count. Gundy gets the exchange, pitches to Barry Sanders, going over the right side. He's at the 30, 25, 20. He's at the 15, to the 10, to the 5. Touchdown, Cowboys of Oklahoma State.
He knew if he could get the ball to Sanders, Sanders would come right over the end spot. He would have nobody but one man to beat. He got him there through the hole, and that's all he needed.
33-yard touchdown run by Heisman Trophy winning Barry Sanders.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. And today, man, we have one of the legends of the game, arguably one of the most dynamic running backs that ever put on the pair of cleats. I'm talking about the collegiate level in the NFL, the 1988 Heisman Trophy winner, Barry Sanders. What's up, Barry?
Hey, guys. Hey, Desmond. How's it going, man? Great to be here. What are you guys up to?
Hey, man, me and my man, J-Ro, just want to sit here and talk about, your career. We both agree you're probably one of the most dynamic, exciting players that we've ever seen. I have to start off, J-Ro, check this out. So listen, J-Ro, when I was in NFL and I played for Green Bay, right? We would play the Lions twice a year, they were in our division, whatever. And, it was like when the defense was on the field, offense is supposed to be playing,
I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, you paying attention to like the wide receivers coach, the quarterback coach, the OC.
Yeah.
Man, bruh, we were all standing on the sideline looking at the field to watch Barry Sanders. Because listen, Barry was just must-see TV, and he was must-see playing when you played against him. He was just that exciting. It was incredible, J-Ro. It really was. And to watch him at field level was impressive.
Desmond, I'm glad I could entertain you in that way, man.
You guys, Barry, I got news for you. I got news for you, my friend. You entertained a lot of people, but
they beat us. They beat us up so bad, though. They beat us up so bad. But
yeah. Well, it's funny. We usually start out this podcast. Both Desmond and I are big music fans, and we start out talking about music.
Right.
And when I think back on watching you play, it's almost like appreciating music. There was an artistry, I think, to what you did, at the risk of being a little fawning here. I mean, it was just really a lot of fun to watch you play. When you were a kid, how did you develop your style of running?
No, I love that analogy, because to me, when I think about the guys that influenced me as a kid, if you go back to a guy like Terry Metcalf,
yep.
He's like a ballet dancer out there. To me, it looked like art. It was like art. When I think about Tony Dorsett, when I watched him at the University of Pittsburgh as a kid,
yes, sir.
That was art to me. There was something about that was more than just running the ball. It was artistic. And a lot of like Marcus Allen, when you look, for me watching him as a kid, Billy Sims, all these great players that I love to watch. There was certainly something just artistic about it. Now, fortunately, in all of my sort of trying to imitate those guys as a kid, I guess enough of it rubbed off on me. But yeah, it's amazing, to think back, because yes, when I think about the running backs, now, you take a guy like Earl Campbell. I love watching Earl Campbell, but I knew I was never going to be an Earl Campbell type runner, or Jim Brown or someone like that. But yes, the guys that really I remember and that I imitated were those guys who there was certainly something artistic about it when I saw it, and that's the kind of influence it had on me.
So a lot of us watched a lot of guys who were, just exceptional athletes and great football players, but, you took it to the next level. What was it about you, about your drive, about the way you competed that started to separate you from your peers? And, what was it that made you say, okay, this is what I want to do every time I step out there on the field?
Well, I think that starts at a young age. For me, I feel like there was always a little bit of that guy in me who wasn't heavily recruited, who was thought of as being probably a little, maybe not big enough to play college football, or certainly.
Preach, Barry, preach for all the rest of us.
And so I think there was always, I always remembered that, and also, I guess, for me, there was nothing greater in the world. And I mean this literally, there was nothing greater in my mind than being a running back in the NFL. I just, when I think back to my formative years and how much of a football fan, I was a big Raiders fan. And I love the Raiders. I remember one of the first games I remember was the 1977 Super Bowl with the Raiders versus the Vikings. And they were just nothing greater than having the opportunity once I got to college and NFL to suit up and be a running back in the NFL. And so I took great pride in it. I try to take care of my body. I try to take care of my abilities, Desmond, and realize that, you really have to cherish it. It goes fast, and so you say, set apart, those are all words that I let others say, and the analysts and things like that. For me, it was just a great honor to be out there. I don't know what category you want to put me in, or, what, where in your top 5 and all those kind of things.
Exactly. Yeah.
But and I was at, and so going back from, high school, that kid who would jog through my neighborhood on a Friday night, just wanting to get a scholarship. And then once I got to Oklahoma State and Thurman Thomas was there, and just really being in that place where, okay, now I'm playing Big 8 college football. Wow.
Right.
This is amazing, and so getting a chance to just, to just live out my dream in that sense. But to answer your question, I mean, it was just nothing greater. There's the greatest to suiting up on a Sunday, playing against the best players, and so there was a drive, I think, an appreciation for it. And I think about, mom and dad.
Right.
My dad was a huge football fan. And so a lot of it did start with him. And I know I've kind of wandered off with this question, but yeah. So I think a lot of things went into it.
Yeah. So as a sports fan growing up, one of the things that I think is kind of formative for a lot of us is we associate players that we love to watch and we're fans of with their numbers. Mickey Mantle was number 7. Michael Jordan was number 23. There's a whole generation of people who knew you as number 20. But Des, over your shoulder there, you're part of the 21 club.
That's right.
That's where Barry was to begin with. Now, how hard was it giving up 21? How important was 21 was your number to you?
Well, yeah, it was important. It was important, but I gotta say, once I got to Detroit and the Lions drafted me, there was a veteran who had number 21, but Coach Fonts came to me and said, well, I think we want to put you in Billy's number 20. And growing up being a huge Billy Sims fan, I was like, hey, Coach, I don't have a problem with that. I love the 21, but yeah, the 20, I thought the 20 was great too, but yeah, when he, maybe had he just said, we're going to put you in number 20, I may have had a problem, but when he said, no, this is Billy Sims' number, sign me up, man. Sign me up.
Listen, there are some of us who are old enough to think of number 20 on the Detroit Lions as Lem Barney.
Lem Barney, there you go, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, yeah, we can't forget about the great Hall of Fame defensive back, Lynn Barney. Absolutely. He's the one who started it off. And fortunately, you know, all of our numbers are retired. You know, that number's been very good for the Detroit Lions, to say the least.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, exactly. I wanted to take you back a little bit and talk about your Heisman year and congratulate you on getting a statue. J-Ro, you know, Barry Sanders has a statue, bro. Like, that's so huge. That's crazy. But
Where's
it's
the
well
statue?
deserved. The statue's at Oklahoma State. Let's talk about, you know, the unveiling of the statue and what that meant to you, Barry.
Well, first off, Desmond, thank you to you and all your game day brothers for the greeting, the video that you sent, and the congratulatory video. So I appreciate that. It meant a lot, and it added so much, you know, to the celebration. But no, yeah. Hey, look, man, it was the greatest sort of, I guess, lifetime achievement award and just recognition, you know, of my career. You know, and you know, to be able to celebrate it with so much family and the coach that coached me at Oklahoma State, is a guy named Pat Jones. He was there. You know, the president of the university and so many others, family members, Oklahoma State fans, so many people. Others sent videos in, you know, like Garth Brooks and Joe Montana and Bo Jackson and so many. I'm leaving out a lot of guys, but it was really just a fantastic tribute. You know, my sons were all there, and just thinking back to, you know, that year, my teammates, so many of my teammates were there as well. Guys who you know, specifically the offensive linemen, you know, who blocked for me that year. But yeah, so it's just such an awesome tribute, you know, and to have, you know, the statue, a fantastic statue erected in my honor. You know, it's just it's just something I never would have imagined. You know, and you probably one of just the most impressive awards I've ever received.
You know, that year that you won the Heisman, 1988, still stands as one of the most remarkable years for any individual in college football history. And for those, you know, who don't know, one of the details was the way it started. You returned the opening kickoff of the year against, I think, Miami of Ohio for a touchdown, and then you were just off to the races. Is there, all these years later, we're talking, what is that, 30-something years later, right? A bunch of those records still stand. And I'm not talking about school records. I'm talking about NCAA records, college football records. What are any of the records in particular still important to you? You know, they say records are made to be broken, but you set records for rushing yards and touchdowns and points. What among them has meaning to you now? Any of them?
I don't know. I mean, they all are very valuable because it just really chronicles that year and those precious moments that you know, that really, I'm not going to say they came out of nowhere, but I was probably as surprised as anyone. You know, I was surprised as anyone to be able to put up those kind of numbers, right? Put up those kind of numbers, because remember, I had sat behind Thurman Thomas for 2 years and saw a fantastic college running back every day in practice and in games, and I knew that, you know, you don't just throw up 2,600 yards in a season. And I had, you know, and I remember being a kid watching Marcus Allen run for 2,000 yards for USC. You know, and so, but if I were to just maybe pluck out one of those stats, I would probably say that the 2,600 yards is the one that I think about the most.
Crazy number.
Just because. Yeah, just because, again, being a running back and all the guys that I saw play this game and you know, and put up great numbers, and so that's probably the one that I would probably pluck out. But I've never been a big. It's funny because I've never been a big numbers guy, you know, and but you start looking at each game by game what we did, you know, 200 yards and 300 yards rushing and things like that, and in a lot of those games, I didn't play the fourth quarter. It was a remarkable year, and I have to continue. I have to go back to the guys that were my offensive linemen. I had five fifth-year senior offensive linemen, which that couldn't happen in today's game.
No, sir.
And a fifth-year senior fullback as well, and in a first round wide receiver named Hartley Dykes. Who played on that team as well, and obviously the quarterback was a guy named Mike Gundy, who now coaches Oklahoma State.
Yeah, that's right. How about that?
But just fantastic. But yeah, the 2,600 yards, that was a lot, especially in that that day and time for college football. That's a lot of yards.
Yeah, no doubt about that. You mentioned about things that wouldn't be able to happen in today's game. You had 5 fifth-year seniors on the offensive line. Another thing that wouldn't happen nowadays is you sat behind Thurman Thomas for 2 years. And tell us, what did you learn, if anything, by watching and observing Thurman Thomas, not just on the field, but maybe even off the field in the meeting rooms too?
Well, first off, it was, when I showed up on campus, it was pretty much understood. This is a guy who's going to the NFL, Thurman Thomas. Right. Yeah, Thurman Thomas.
Right.
So just knowing that to me was just kind of cool. Like every day, like, okay, he'll be in the league. And I was, I don't know where I was on the depth chart when I first got there, but there were a ton of running backs. And to the point where my dad, when I first signed with O State, he wasn't that excited about me going there because there were so many running backs. But just watching him every day, he was a complete player. He took it serious. He took every part of the game serious. If you look at Thurman, not just him running the ball, but the way he blocks, the way he runs his routes, how competitive he was, and he was just a great. Obviously, he's a Hall of Famer in the NFL, but watching him as a college player, he was very mature. He was very mature. He never, for me, he was never, I never felt that sort of, senior freshman type vibe. Right. Or he was a junior and I was a freshman. Every now and then I may have to carry his shoulder pads in, after practice. But but he was never. But yeah, he was always very mature, I think, for his age. And maybe he probably knew he was going to the league as well. And so yeah, and then so I think that's probably the best thing. Just watching him every day in practice, how he approached the game. He was a great student athlete. And just a great model for someone like myself who came in not heavily recruited, really just trying to find my way, and really, trying to find my niche within that program. So that's probably what I would say.
Yeah, well, I think you found your niche in that program. So you use the phrase "out of nowhere," and I know you're just using it casually, but I went back earlier this morning and I looked at some clips from back then. And I was stunned by a couple of reflections from the other guys who finished second and third in the 1988 Heisman Trophy balloting. And that was Rodney Peete, who was the USC quarterback, and Troy Aikman, who was at the time the UCLA quarterback. And one of the things Troy said, and I guess he was foretelling his ability to be a broadcaster because he put his finger on it. He said, the two of us, we play in Los Angeles. We're on television all the time. But good for Barry, because Oklahoma State was getting no run nationally until he started running the ball the way he did. So it really was a situation where, because of what you did, you attracted the attention by virtue of your accomplishments.
Well, no, that's awesome to think back on it in that way. And for me, it was just exciting to be a part of it. I remember the two front runners, not only were those guys ended up finishing strong in the Heisman race, but obviously they were the front runners, preseason front runners that year.
Oh wow! Okay.
They were the preseason front runners, so they had like the big campaigns, like big Heisman campaigns that the schools would do back then. And so yeah, I mean, and it was, and so, yeah, I think they were probably a little more used to the recognition, and the attention and things like that. But yeah, I mean, it was, I love to think about the fact that it happened that way, that, the season we had and the numbers I was putting up really drew attention to Oklahoma State in that way. And for me, again, it was just about doing the stuff every day, really enjoying college football. I love being in Stillwater. And my dad pretty much had to threaten me with my life in order to make me leave there, with my chance to go to the NFL. But obviously that's a whole other story. But no, I love being in Stillwater.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Barry's going to walk us through his Heisman moment. We'll be right back.
All right, we welcome you back to Hello Heisman. The great Barry Sanders from Oklahoma State, 1988 Heisman Trophy winner, joins us now. And Barry, do you think you had a Heisman moment?
Heisman Trophy winner.
When I think about Heisman moment for me, I think about going to play the University of Colorado in Boulder. I think that was the fourth game of my junior year. And the reason I say that game was because that was, I guess, on our schedule that season, probably to that point, the toughest game we were going to play. And we knew that there were guys on that team that were future pros. And it was going to just be a really good measuring stick for, okay, how good are we? I mean, we beat up on, Tulsa, and we beat up on Miami of Ohio, like you mentioned, the first game of the year. But that was, I think, the first true test. And so I remember after that game, we had won pretty easily, after a pretty good battle in the first half. And I had 100 and however many yards, and kind of broke the game open in the second half with a 70-yard touchdown run.
Sanders at tailback from the 33. Gundy gives the ball to Barry Sanders up the middle. 35. He's at the 40. He's at the 45. He's at the right to 50. 45, 40, 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Cowboys of Oklahoma State.
Is that a vintage Barry Sanders right there? Barry Sanders bounced off of two tacklers who thought that they had him, and Barry Sanders has exploded again.
67 yards for Barry Sanders as he trots off the field. 67-yard run by the Heisman Trophy winner.
But I remember after that game, some of the fans starting to say something about Heisman. I was like, oh wow, maybe they're getting a little too excited about this win. This win against Colorado, but yeah. So I think that was probably sort of a Heisman moment for me. Going up there and having a really good game against the Buffs, the Buffaloes, who, they were, we were kind of even in the division after OU and Nebraska at that point. It was more so the rest of us. And so O State and Colorado were kind of even. But yeah, when fans started chanting Heisman after that game, I was kind of embarrassed. Like I said before, like, wow, I know it's a good win, but I don't know if we want to start chanting Heisman just yet.
Pump the brakes. No, I get you. I got it. Check this. Well, Barry's always been very humble too. So, I mean, you put up numbers like that, big game like that, people are going to start talking about the Heisman. But J-Ro, I have to bring this up. We do our Heisman commercials, right? We have a lot of fun, but we take it seriously because they do a great job with commercials. And I would say that the top 3 actors
okay, so
are probably Baker Mayfield,
oh yeah,
Barry Sanders, and Desmond Howard. Now listen, probably
don't be talking about yourself in the third person.
Well, listen, but I really, for real though, Barry is such a really good actor. He's so composed. He can, like, what they call, like, deadpan, and he makes everybody laugh, like, just we did like this spike ball commercial, and Barry just walks up straight face. I mean, we have to keep doing like the take like 3 or 4 times. It's me, Baker, it's Bo Jackson, and Barry never spiked the football, right? So the spike ball, thing is about, okay, spike the ball. We're playing a spike ball game.
Right.
And he takes the ball from this official, and he looks like he's about to spike it. But man, like we keep cracking up because he's so stone-faced and so serious. And Barry, I'm telling you, like, you really could have, and you still can. Have you ever thought about like just going into acting? Has anyone ever approached you about going into acting? Because I think you can do it.
Desmond, is that what you call what we've been doing? Acting? You call
No, or stealing.
And whatever we've been doing, you and Baker, y'all great at it.
Wow. No, I thought I would agree with you on the Baker Mayfield part. I mean, he's pretty good, and of course he's had a lot of practice, he gets a ton of practice, but I didn't realize that my acting skills that anyone noticed. I thought it was all going unnoticed until now. So I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, the commercial was you in the car, you in the truck with Kyler Murray.
Oh yeah, I know that one.
That's classic. Like I love that. Just the facial expression, the facial acting when you look at Kyler. I'm like, yeah, very.
Des, you bring up a good point though about the whole spiking thing, and I had wanted to talk to Barry about that. So you were famous for getting into the end zone and then finding the official and just giving him the ball. What are your thoughts on the celebrations that we see now?
Oh, I enjoy most of it. Honestly, I enjoy most of it. I think just be yourself and do what comes natural. For me, it was just handing the ball to the ref. I've never been a very good dancer.
Dancing with the Stars are out. That's out. Okay.
Right. But yeah, I mean, it's a game where it's very emotional and you want to have fun. And when you get to the end zone, there's nothing better for an offensive player than winning and scoring a touchdown, winning and scoring a touchdown. So yeah, I mean, have fun, do what comes natural. And just don't be too crazy about it.
I wanted to ask you, it was about, when you were in the NFL and you were such an exciting player and we all had scouting reports. If you were a linebacker and you had to give a scouting report on watching film on Barry Sanders and you're an opposing linebacker, what would your scouting report say about Barry Sanders and his attributes as a running back?
Wow. I would say, hey, look, go in there, put your helmet on his chest.
That's coach speak, man. That's coach speak.
Helmet on his chest.
Come on, okay.
Maybe give him a little extra, punch in the gut if you get a chance, in the bottom of the pile, but no, I think hey, obviously you gotta take care of your gap integrity, and try to keep them in a box. I mean, whatever, because I love playing defense. And I just think you have to have a certain mentality when you play defense, and you just gotta, you gotta. I don't think you can play scared. You got to just go out there and do what you do, but certainly gap integrity, and try not to try not to let him get, he wants to get to the sideline, so try to keep him in the hashes, try to keep him in the middle of the field, maybe something like that. I mean, I don't. Maybe that's why I'm not a coach. So,
hey, so what a lot of people may not remember is that when you won the Heisman, you were not at the Downtown Athletic Club. You were in Japan getting ready to play. I think it was Texas Tech, right?
Correct. Yes.
How weird was that? To be on the other side of the planet, and participating in this whole Heisman Trophy thing, which was, as you've said, one of the most important moments of your life.
It was crazy and it was bizarre, but for me, it may have been for the best. just to be away from, away from everything, because what had happened is we had scheduled a game. They used to have what's called the Tokyo Bowl, right? And so two college teams would go play in Tokyo, and they did that for maybe 4 or 5 years, and so that was our year. 88 was our year to go and play, and so that's just where I happened to be, December 3rd of 1988. And so, and it just so happened that the game, the actual game in Tokyo was on the same day as the Heisman ceremony. But the only problem is that there are 12 hours time difference or 13 hours time difference,
That's right.
And so I don't remember what time we had to get up for the ceremony. It was something like 2 a.m. Tokyo time, something crazy like that. And so it was very bizarre. And so I was just in this little room with a camera, and really, sort of that's how I participated in the Heisman Trophy ceremonies.
Wow.
and so it was like I said, it was very bizarre. But for me, it was probably good to be over there in Tokyo because they, obviously they kind of knew what the Heisman was, but it wasn't like in the States, obviously, where, it was so bizarre and all the media attention and things like that. I think it really gave me a chance to kind of focus on the game, and really.
Did you win?
Did you win the game?
Did the game?
Oh, we did.
Yeah,
We did.
We know
Yes,
you
we
won
did.
the Heisman.
We did. I had a big game. Had a big game against Texas Tech. I mean, it wasn't much defense played in that game. It was a very high scoring game. Had a lot of yards. But yeah, I had, like I said, my offensive lineman pretty much had to get me out of bed at 3 a.m. because I was like, I don't want to go to the ceremony, because we got a game, game in a few hours, and that kind of thing. But yeah, just really an awesome memory from that time, because we're literally on the other side of the world, and I'm and that's how I found out I won a Heisman Trophy.
Well, Barry, you've given us and millions and millions and millions of fans awesome memories. It's been such a pleasure watching you play, getting to know you, being a part of the Heisman fraternity with you and doing the Heisman commercials with you. Always a pleasure. Thanks for joining Hello Heisman, brother. Appreciate you.
Gentlemen, it's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me, man. Continued success to you guys.
Thanks, Barry. All right, before we go away, one of our favorite parts of the podcast, we get to check into the mailbag and see what some of you have on your minds. And Des, one of our viewers and listeners wants to know if you have a favorite play from college football bowl history. Anything stick out in your mind?
Oh man, quite a few. I tell you what, J-Ro, and guys, keep the questions coming. I love this portion of what we do. This is a lot of fun. But I would say I've been doing this since 05, and I believe it was like the 2007 Fiesta Bowl, Oklahoma, Boise State, and people didn't really know much about Boise State at this point, so they were on the big stage against the powerful Oklahoma Sooners, and I believe the game was in overtime, and Boise had the opportunity to go for two to go for the win, or kick and go to another overtime. But Chris Peterson was the head coach at that point for Boise, and he elected to roll the dice and go for two. And they had a quarterback named Zabransky. They did the Statue of Liberty play of all plays.
Right?
It was like
that takes some stones to do that.
Really, right, J-Ro. I was like, man, they pulled the Statue of Liberty play, and Zabransky handed the ball off to Ian Johnson, the running back, and he went in for two and scored the winning 2-point conversion. It was pandemonium. It was chaos. And then I believe Ian Johnson at that time proposed to his girlfriend, who was a cheerleader. So that had everything that you can ask for in the bowl game. And it was just a great ending to the Fiesta Bowl.
Right. Not only did he propose to his girlfriend, I think her name was Chrissy. I looked it up. It's Chrissy Papadakis. I hope I've got that right.
Okay. I hope so.
But
too.
Anyway, it happened during a live post-game interview with Chris Myers on Fox. So it wasn't one of those things that was just reported, and there weren't cell phones back then, so it wasn't like somebody had taken video of it. I mean, the guy got down on one knee in the middle of an interview. I mean, it was just, like you said, it had everything, not only, this great ending, but the fact that here was Boise State, and if you're out there and you're watching this game, and Boise State, I think, was ranked 9th in the country, Oklahoma was 8th. But still, it was a little bit similar to this year with Cincinnati, because these guys were outsiders on the outside looking in. So there was great interest in this game, and I'm sure that there were a lot of people who were surprised that Boise State stayed with them. They end up winning in an exciting finish, and then the cherry on top is the Statue of Liberty, and the cherry on top of the cherry is the proposal on live television. It was a great moment in college football history.
That really was. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So one of our other viewers and listeners wants to know if you have a favorite college football bowl matchup. Now, I don't know if that means this year or in history. I'm guessing in history it would have to be the Rose Bowl. But what if it was this year?
Yeah, well, you're right about history. The Rose Bowl is like, it's a bucket list. I tell anybody who's a college football fan, if you love college football, attending a game in Pasadena at the Rose Bowl is a must. Like, it's a bucket list item, and everyone who's going out there who has no affiliation with, like, the traditional schools, like either a Big Ten school or Pac-12 school, that but they've gone out to see a Rose Bowl game, they've been all blown away. I would say the Orange Bowl game is obviously very intriguing when you look at Michigan team that was picked, I think, to finish maybe 4th in their division, not the conference, but picked to finish 4th in their division. They obviously number 2 team in the country, now taking on the Georgia team that was the consensus number 1 team in the country for the whole season until the SEC championship game when Alabama took care of business. So number 2, number 3 in the Orange Bowl. I think that Michigan right now is playing with house money. You got the AP Coach of the Year in Jim Harbaugh, the Broyles Award winner, and the Assistant Coach of the Year, and Josh Gaddis, the offensive coordinator. So it's going to be a good matchup. He's watching, it's not just about Michigan's offense against Georgia's defense. It's also about Stetson Bennett and Georgia's offense against Hutchinson and Michigan's defense too. So yeah, Aiden Hutchinson and Michigan's defense too. So it's going to be a great matchup. I can't wait for the Orange Bowl.
Yeah, and another reason why that's got to be your favorite. So it's Michigan playing for all the marbles, or at least an opportunity to get to all the marbles, right. And you don't even have to get on an airplane to go watch it.
Home game, my friend. It's a home game. We love the home games. You know what I mean? So that's the beauty of having the Orange Bowl right here.
Yeah, well, I thought you might. I thought maybe you were going to talk about the Peach Bowl, but never mind. I guess not. Anyway, all right. That's all the mail we've got this week. We remind you, if you want to submit a question to Desmond or myself or to both of us, just go to Varsity's Instagram page. But that's it for today's podcast.
That's right. That's it for Hello Heisman, brought to you by the Varsity Podcast Network. And this show has been produced in partnership with Learfield and Blue Duck Media. I'm Desmond Howard.
And I'm Jimmy Roberts.
See you next week.